All right, folks. So what is it? Are we going to go to war with Turkey? Maybe. Is Israel going to get attacked by Turkey? Is Benjamin Netanyahu evil? Is he good? I have Jerome Corsy joining me today to help put everything in perspective. And folks, the podcaster's going all in on Trump right now. This is going to fail miserably for them. We're coming into a new phase of all this, a new phase of this whole entire operation, and we're going to go full. It's going to get wild. I've been told it's going to get crazy, folks. It's going to get wild. Raids are going to pick up like you've never before seen. Drill, baby, drill. America's going to keep winning. Now, I know a lot of people want to jump. I have friends that don't agree with what Trump's doing. They're actually on that side now of, the Trump bashing bandwagon, right? I'm not doing it. I know better than that. I see where this operation is going. I see the threats that are being neutralized. And in my mind, yeah, it's going to get ugly. It's going to be really ugly. There's a lot of things we're not going to like about this. But like I said, I voted for a guy to roll up his sleeves, get his hands dirty, and neutralize the threats. And once these threats are neutralized, which they are, folks, we basically already won with Iran. It's almost a done deal. This is wrapping up. Despite all the naysayers and all the people out there saying this and that, he's this, Melania, Trump's with Epstein. All this stuff's going to be put to rest. Watch and see. Watch and see. Why didn't the Melania Trump stuff come out in 2016 and 2020? 2024? We're going to get into all this and much more. I have Jerome Corsy joining me on the show today. Notifications, folks. Hit the notifications. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, Ringside with Nino, Wednesday the 15th. This Wednesday, I'll be doing Ringside with Nino. I still have the Live Forever special up there. It's doing quite well. A lot of people are choosing to do that. So it's a one-time payment, and you live forever on ninoscorner.tv. Yeah, and for as long as my happy ass is up there. Also, folks, when the lights go out on Amazon, when the lights go out, please leave an honest review. Leave a nice honest review. Just be perfectly honest with me, and that's all I can ask for. I might write a second book. I might do it. Also, the Mexican Mix, my mama's book, same thing. Leave an honest review. We appreciate it. Also, folks, get your copper. A lot of people have been asking me, well, where should I put my money? And this is perfect. This is right up your alley. The U.S. administration recently announced a $12 billion critical mineral stockpile plan in a move to counter China's dominance that could reshape the mining sector. This is real, and it's happening right now with President Trump, President Trump's backing. This isn't just about a mining. It's a national security imperative. In an official press release, the governor of Alaska has officially thrown his support behind the critical U.S. mineral project. Palmer, this is the same Palmer project singled out in a formal report to the White House as a strategic asset for America's mineral independence. Vizsla Copper, that's what it's called. Vizsla Copper owns 100% of this, folks. We're talking about an asset believed to host in-ground value containing the copper, zinc, and silver that are critical to our military and defense readiness, our energy grid, and our national security. This isn't speculation. It's a government-backed push to fast-track domestic production, and it puts Vizsla Copper trading in the U.S. under VCUFF, squarely at the center of America's next strategic supply chain build-out. So we've seen this story play out before when other Alaskan miners like Triggy Metals and Nova Minerals received government backing. Their shares soared over 200%. Now the governor of Alaska has officially thrown his support behind the Palmer project, which was also named in government report as a key strategic asset for America's mineral independence. And in my opinion, the market hasn't priced this in yet. Vizsla Copper, which owns 100% of Palmer, trades in the U.S. under VCUFF and in Canada. Folks, if you want to get involved in this is very exciting. I'm glad they chose me as a sponsor. Go down below, VizslaCopper.com, and get started. People have been asking me, what should I do? Silver, gold, and copper. I guess they heard me talking about copper, and they jumped on board. So let's go. Let's go, baby. Let's do this. All right. So X is Nino Boxer. Nino's Corner.shop is down there below. Get a hat like this, a Nino's Corner hat. I got hoodies and shirts there. There it is right there. Thank you, Alex, for showing it. Some basic stuff right now, but it's the Truth Hurts, Truth Hits Hard line that we're doing right now. We're going to come out with some other stuff as well, but I'm excited about it. Hey, yo, what's up? Also, Nino's Corner.tv, 107. Jerome Corsy's up there right now. General McInerney's coming on. Stuart Swerdlow's coming back on. You all requested him. I'm bringing him back. Gene Decode is today. Leo Zagami. I got Flat Earth Dave coming on today as well. Flat Earth Dave is we talking about. Look, folks, the Artemis moon mission is simple. It's an IQ test, okay? It's really an IQ test. I don't care what anyone says. I know what I'm looking at here, and I'm going to get on with Flat Earth Dave today, and we're going to talk about this. I'm pretty excited about this particular show. I also got John Pounders coming on. We're going to be talking about the elite hunting parties. You just saw Mike Tyson come out and talk about this, and yeah, he did. He talked about this, and we're going to be talking about the hunting parties. The hunting parties. We're going to be talking about the hunting parties. How does Mike know about this? They tried to hunt me. Also in the general's tent, Sheila Holm, April 23rd, 5 p.m. She's the general in the general's tent. Nino's Corner is absolute fire, and it's a networking community for all patriots. That's what I've turned it into. And I got to say, the Black Sheep family have become, I recognize every person that comes on the ringside with Nino. I recognize every person at the general's tent. We've all become a very close community. I do about an hour on there, and then I leave it up for a free-for-all, and you guys really just go all night. You guys just chop it up all night. I don't know how you do it, but I'm pretty damn proud of this, to be honest with you. All right, so, and without further ado, before I forgot, I went to go see Ted Nugent. I was with Ted Nugent in Phoenix, and I saw a little bit of his concert. I was in the back with him in his RV. Good dude, man. What a great guy. Shemaine Nugent, awesome. Ted, awesome. The whole family, their son. I mean, just a good group of people, man, and a really, really awesome patriot. So I had a really good time with Ted, and got to introduce him to some of my friends, and that's probably why he kicked them out. No, he didn't kick he didn't kick anybody out. It was fun. I had a blast. So pretty cool. Ted Nuge, the Nuge, Uncle Ted. Pretty badass. And without further ado, folks, you might want to turn it down or turn it up, whatever you choose. Coming at you live from the apocalypse, folks. Yeah, baby. Let's go. So could Turkey throw their hat into the ring here? Well, they said Netanyahu's blinded by blood and hate. And is China making more bold moves? I heard we're bankrupting China as we speak. So no deal with Iran, as they call the United States the Great Satan. The Great Satan. And I quote, the American enemy, which is vile, wicked, and dishonest, attempted to achieve on the negotiating table what it could not achieve through war. Really? Really, talk about pushing the envelope here. Iran has decided to reject these terms and continue the sacred defense of its fatherland by any means necessary, military or diplomatic. And as the Strait of Hormuz remains a major problem and continues its extortion, the Gulf of America is in business like never before. So drill, baby, drill. It looks like it's all coming back here. And I'm going to ask Jerome more about this because these people, Iran, or the regime that hijacked, let's call it what it is, the regime that hijacked Iran want nothing more than the apocalypse, than Armageddon. This is all part of prophecy for them. So to them, they want this, folks. This is what they want. This is what people are failing to understand. But if they don't have the gear and the artillery to fight the United States, they're just going to be blasted off the map, and they're going to go see their 72 virgins. That's what's going to happen. So the Gulf of America is in business like never before. Hundreds of super tankers from every corner of the planet are racing at Texas and Louisiana to fill up with the sweetest, cheapest, most American oil on earth. While the world panics over Hormuz, President Trump just made the USA the #1 energy superpower again. Record exports, record tankers, record winning. The globalist chokehold is broken. America is in the new gas station, for the planet. But there's still problems, folks. The Middle East still has another problem surfacing. Turkey is now threatening to throw its hat into the ring. Could this be why Trump is threatening to pull out of NATO? Because he knows a conflict with Turkey is inevitable? Is Turkey going to come to the aid of Iran? You know, you understand the Muslim population of Turkey. I want to say it's well over 80%. Will Turkey come after Israel? So here is what happens. I'm going to read just real quick. Here's what could happen if Turkey joins the war. If Israel struck Turkey or vice versa, the U.S. obligations under NATO would depend on how NATO interprets the attack and whether Article 5 is invoked. The short answer is the U.S. would likely be politically obligated to help Turkey because they're part of NATO, but not automatically required to go to war with Israel. Turkey is a NATO member. Israel is not. Turkey joined NATO in 1952. Israel is not part of NATO. So if Turkey were attacked on its territory, it could ask NATO to respond. Article 5, attack on one is an attack on all. If Turkey claimed the strike was an armed attack, it could request NATO to invoke Article 5. Article 5 says an attack on one NATO member is considered an attack on all. Each member must assist the attacked country. However, there are two extremely important limitations. Article 5 is not automatic. NATO members must agree politically that the attack qualifies. Each country chooses how to help. Assistance can include military force, intelligence sharing, air defenses, logistics, and sanctions. It does not require sending troops. What the U.S. would likely have to do if this were to happen, if Article 5 were invoked and accepted, the U.S. would likely, possible U.S. actions, deploy air defense systems to Turkey, provide intelligence and surveillance, send naval and air forces to the region, coordinate NATO military planning, impose diplomatic and economic pressure on Israel. That's not going to happen. That would never happen. So this is, to me, in my mind, this could be the wild card. Now, I'm going to ask Jerome Corsy what he thinks. I don't think he thinks it's a big deal, but we're going to ask him what his thoughts are. Jerome Corsy, thank you so much for joining me, sir. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Thanks, Nino. Great to be with you again.
All right. Yeah, I was just we just did a show, what, yesterday?
Yesterday, yes, that's right.
Yeah, Nino's Corner.tv on fire. All right. So the tankers are coming to the Gulf of America. Trump has often said, drill, baby, drill. I often think that we're going into a new part of this operation. We got podcasters galore going after Trump. I mean, everyone's bashing Trump right now. Jerome, how do you feel about that right now? Alex Jones is one of your friends. Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. I mean, it's like they're ganging up on Trump right now.
I know. It's pretty remarkable. The amount of anti-Israel rhetoric that's floating around is at an all-time high. And to me, what I perceive going, my first book in Iran was 2005, Atomic Iran. And Iran was on the verge of having a nuclear weapon, which they have vowed since 1979 to develop a nuclear weapon and drop it on Tel Aviv. Would destroy, that's the Atomic Iran right there. And it was a bestseller at that time. And really was one of the books that first sounded the alarm about Iran and said, let the world know that this was a very dangerous regime. They're Shiites, not Sunnis. The major division in Islam is between the Shiites and the Sunnis. The Shiites have this belief that there is only the family of the Prophet Muhammad should rule Islam, not a secular leader like the Sunnis believe. And that this young boy 500 years ago went down a well and went into hiding. He was part of the family of the Prophet. And when the Mahdi, as they call him, will come out of the well, there will be an apocalypse worldwide. and out of that, Shiite Islam will triumph.
Hold on. When he comes out of the well,
Comes out of the well. He went
he's
down
still
the
down
well.
in the well, right? He's still in the well.
He's in the well.
It's like the Groundhog Day. What is this? What are you talking
Look,
about? Who believes this shit?
The Shiite religion is founded on this idea.
This kid's still in a well.
Yeah, the
This
last family of the last person from the family of the prophet who ruled Islam was this young boy who went down a well 500 or 600 years ago and is in occlusion, they say, occlusion, hiding. And when he comes out of the well, there will be a worldwide apocalypse and a global war. And out of that global war, Shiite Islam will triumph.
They still believe this shit. This is real. Come on, really? I didn't know. I had zero idea about this. This is real.
I was at the United Nations when Ahmadinejad, then Prime Minister of Iran, gave a speech and referenced the Mahdi coming out of the well with the apocalypse. He referenced it at the United Nations.
Man, I don't know what to say about it. I just don't know.
They got this crazy idea that you need a worldwide war for religion to defeat other religions.
So they want this war. I mean, they're not going to stop. This is to them prophecy being fulfilled. But people can also say, you know, there's the other camp too, Jerome. And I wanted to talk about this now. This may be uncomfortable for you because I know you back Israel and all that. I'm not putting anything on you, but I got to play devil's advocate here. I got to say, a lot of people say Benjamin Netanyahu's evil and what he did to Gaza, the greater state of Israel. I mean, aren't both sides just as bad?
Well, the problem with Gaza is it's been controlled by Hamas for more than 20 years, going back probably 30 years. When when Ayatollah Khomeini, 1979, came back to Iran and started the Iranian Revolution, he came out of France, and you had Nasrallah, who went and created Hezbollah in Lebanon, and you had another group that created Hamas in the Gaza in order to oppose Israel. These were surrogate terrorist organizations funded by Iran, just like the Houthis in Yemen. Okay, and so they have all been dedicated to the extinction of the Jewish state, killing the Jews, ending the state of Israel, and pushing the Jews out of the Middle East. Okay, so that's their stated goal. And
so, in other words, Benjamin Netanyahu's like obliterate them all, get rid of them all, greater state of Israel. And, you know, like we talked about on Nino's Corner.tv, I can't help but say or think about all the innocent women and children that died in Gaza and now all the big real estate contracts. What do you have to say about that, honestly? Your point of view on that?
People are
going to say that in the comments too, you know?
For all the time that that Hamas has been, and I was in Israel when Yasser Arafat came back, was allowed to come back into Israel to run Hamas. Arafat was not Palestinian. He was born in Egypt. He was Muslim Brotherhood. Going back to World War II, when the Muslim Brotherhood made a deal with Hitler to eliminate the Jews in the Middle East. Okay, and so the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority have controlled the Gaza and have really stolen huge amounts of money that were given to the Palestinians to improve the lot of the Palestinian people, which the Hamas has kept as in poverty. You know, the streets often are not paved in the Gaza. I mean, the people have lived in poverty. Meanwhile, Hamas has built a intricate tunnel structure underneath the Gaza. They've been bringing in weapons. They fire missiles constantly at Israel from the Gaza. And Arafat had his wealth with his wife and living a luxurious life in France. Well, basically his sexual proclivities lied elsewhere. And so therefore the whole group was,
so he was a closet. He was closet.
The whole group was a fraudulent effort to essentially bilk billions. I go to the United Nations. The United Nations was filled with Palestinian propaganda. There never was a Palestinian state. Palestine was the name the British called the people who lived in what is now Israel. And they included Jews, Arabs, anyone living in that Israel.
So,
Today.
so are you
Palestine.
okay? So like you can see it being justified that Gaza was reduced to rubble the way it is, and now these huge
I abhor war. I've always abhorred war. I've said out of war. War doesn't solve problems; it creates problems. And there's always going to be tragedies. There's always going to be cases of injustice and things you wish didn't happen. Children shouldn't be killed. Women shouldn't be killed. The infirm shouldn't be killed. But then again, you shouldn't have Hamas hiding in the hospitals and using the women and children as shields, which they do. Okay, so they necessitate they're going to be killed in order to blame Israel. And until recently, most of that rhetoric, most of that anti-Israel rhetoric is not played very loudly in the world stage. But I think that the sentiment against Israel, the anti-Semitism, is at an all-time high. And I see it on the universities, where the universities are out protesting for Hamas and not for Israel. Jews right now on university campuses are having a very difficult time.
So, when you look at everything transpiring right now, where do you see this going with Iran? Right now, it says no deal with Iran. It's over. JD Vance just announced that the Iran-U.S. negotiations are dead. They have chosen not to accept our terms. Both delegations are going home. No deal, no nuclear commitment, no Lebanon ceasefire, no Strait reopened, no frozen assets, no reparations. 21 hours of talks. A war that has killed thousands, a ceasefire that Israel bombed through the day from day one. A 30-nation coalition is being assembled. 2 Navy destroyers are cleaning mines right now in the Hormuz. The next few weeks will be pivotal, eyes peeled. Where do you see this going, Jerome? Where do you see all of this going? Should people be prepared for a scare event? What do you see here?
Well, first of all, the military in Iran has been largely decimated. The Navy's sunk. They don't have very many missiles left. There's some yet around that they can fire, nowhere near the original amount that they had. So the military in Iran has been largely destroyed. Now with the blockade, it's going to stranglehold Iran economically. They're going to lose about $400 million a day, both from exports and imports, because there's going to be no ships landing in Iran as long as we have a blockade.
But the ships are coming here, right, Jerome?
Well, that other nations are sending their tankers to the United States to get the oil. It is a bonanza for U.S. oil producers, because now if the Straits of Hormuz are closed, I think only temporarily, we see the Gulf of America is going to be swarmed with tankers wanting to pick up oil.
So why don't we just say, all right, keep it closed, no big deal. We're bringing business back to America, baby. What's so bad about that?
Trump has said it. Trump has said this does not hurt us.
I mean, look at that map right there.
The countries that are hurt by us having a blockade in the Straits of Hormuz are China, India, and Europe. Not that it is not hurting the United States. We get very little oil out of the Straits of Hormuz. We don't need Iranian oil. We have plenty of oil, especially since Trump has been drilling. I mean, under Biden, it was a different issue. When we had this, nutcase climate change nonsense, and we were going to go to net zero using of hydrocarbon fuels, which was only a leftist Marxist idea designed to destroy capitalism. They thought that if they would, cut off hydrocarbon fuels, get us afraid to use oil, over time, billions of people would die. And it was a Malthusian agenda, the new world, too many human beings, reduce human beings down to very few, and utilize Marxism as the catalyst to destroy everything good about capitalism, or the values that God, the family values that have made America strong. And that's been a conscious plan for a long time, but at least since the Russian Revolution.
So Iran wants this holy war. They're not going to stop at anything. They're going to keep going forward. In fact, it said Iran released a blistering statement after 21 hours of talks collapsed in Islamabad. The American enemy, which is vile, wicked, and dishonest, attempted to achieve on the negotiating table what it could not achieve through war. I mean, Iran has decided to reject these terms and continue the sacred defense of its fatherland by any means necessary, military or diplomatic. Now, we were sending bombers over there, and Trump at the last second said, "Hey, we're going to absolutely annihilate civilization, send you back to the Stone Ages." And then, as the bombers are on their way, they want to work a deal. Trump says, "Okay, let's do it." Turns the bombers around. And now they're saying, "Come on, let's go." I mean, what make up their minds here? Do they have a trick up their sleeve? Is China going to come to their aid? Because we're also hearing China is making some big moves or bolder moves with Iran, correct?
Well, China, first of all, let's deal with Iran. I mean, Iran calculated that we would have increased oil prices, increased gasoline prices, and the closing of the Straits of Hormuz, which was their last card to play, would force us to the negotiating table and make concessions which would allow the Iranian regime to survive. The Iranian regime refused to renounce developing nuclear weapons. They refused to give back the uranium that they've enriched, which is one step away from being weapons grade. They refused to keep the Straits of Hormuz open to all shipping. And so therefore, they were basically saying they were going to stay in control, even if their power had been reduced and the people hated them. They didn't care if they were an illegitimate regime. They didn't care if the people of Iran, they had to kill 40,000 people in Iran over the protests in Iran to remain in power. And they miscalculated. Iran thought they had the upper hand because they could economically squeeze the United States with increased oil prices, gasoline in the United States. And Trump said, it's only going to be temporary, and you'll take the hit. And now we're seeing a bonanza coming to the United States with the oil tankers. And within, I'd say today or tomorrow, the Straits of Hormuz will be open and international traffic will begin to flow.
So you think Iran's going to cooperate then with the strait being open, or is that something
they have no choice? If Iran tries to interdict the ships with their fast boats or mines, or tries to do military action to stop traffic from going through the Straits of Hormuz, the United States will just resume the military war, and we'll know where their attack points are in the Straits of Hormuz. We'll go and attack.
I'm confused because now they're saying, bring it on. America is vile, this and that. So what, is that just all talk, Jerome? I mean, are they willing to keep fighting?
In the background, they don't mind if they cause the apocalypse. If they can produce a global insanity and world war, that's the beginning to them of the Mahdi coming out of the well. And it's the beginning of their triumph. They see worldwide destruction as a necessary condition to their destruction. They see nuclear war as inevitable before they gain power over the world.
And doesn't this also work with the globalists' plan to introduce the alien card at about this time? I mean, isn't that also truth right there, Jerome? Weren't the globalists planning on using the alien card when the nuclear war kicks off and nuclear holocaust, and then introduce the aliens to save humanity? Wasn't that seriously part of the plan?
No, I'm not sure the aliens worked into it. I think the New World Group, the Davos group, always found that it was effective to combine Marxism with radical Islam because they were both opposed to the United States. So Ayatollah Khomeini's movement became a socialist movement. David Horowitz was one of the first to point this out in books he was writing on the Middle East. I always thought he was right. So the enemies of, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Islam combined with Marxism to produce this revolutionary jihadism. And that's what we've been fighting since 1979.
But I look back on the Albert Pike 3 World Wars, this Scottish Rite Mason talking about how the last World War will be fought between the Muslims and the Christians, the atheists, nihilists, and bring in this Luciferian agenda, right? And it looks like that's what's being played out right now to a lot of people. But we can say, you and I are both confident in saying that no, actually quite the contrary. This is being neutralized so that war does not happen, right? So those globalist plans do not happen. We're kind of nipping it in the bud right now so that the globalists can't use Iran for a nuclear holocaust, correct?
That's basically the point, is that it's not inevitable that we would go through that World War III. Now, if we didn't stop Iran from developing a nuclear war, we were farther advanced down that agenda, okay? Because a war between the West and radical Muslim Islam is in the works, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen. And I believe that what's going on right now with Iran is one of the steps that will postpone or maybe prevent that kind of a war from developing globally.
So it says here, Trump says U.S. will blockade Strait of Hormuz after Iran peace talks failed. President Donald Trump said the U.S. will blockade the Strait of Hormuz after talks to end the Iran war ended without a resolution over the weekend. Trump also said the U.S. Navy will seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid a toll to Iran.
Right. And this is going to hurt China, going to hurt India more than any other countries. It'll hurt Europe too. I mean, the great British Navy, with once ruled the seas, is now dominated by the Islamic population of Great Britain, which does not want Great Britain entering a war with Iran on the side of the United States.
So let's get your view on Turkey here, because Turkey brands Netanyahu, the Hitler of our time, as I guess it's Erdogan, right? Is that his name? Threatens to invade
Aragon.
Okay, well, I said it kind of Spanish. I said it the Sancho way.
I
hope you appreciate that.
Spanish was good, but he's Turkish.
I'll say Erdogan, you say potato, I say pataro. I don't know what the fuck you're talking. All right, Turkey's president has strongly criticized Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, stating he is blinded by blood and hate.
Yeah.
As one of the ministers dubbed him a Hitler of our time. A lot of people would agree with this.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of anti-Jewish hatred around the world.
It's not about being anti-Jewish. It's just saying this guy's kind of fucking I kind of even see him the same way. I'm like, dude's bombing women and children. I believe and I'm not, don't get mad, Jerome. I'm just devil's advocate here. I kind of see that whole, what was it, October 7th attack as something he wanted, if you know what I mean.
So he did this in order to, that's insane.
I don't think it's insane.
Well, okay, hold that belief if you want.
If you want the real estate,
Look, right? Since 1979, going back to Jimmy Carter, there's been attempts to create a two-state solution to the Middle East and give the Palestinians a state. Okay, it's never worked because the Palestinians have always viewed that as simply one step closer to eliminating Israel. And none of those agreements worked. Jimmy Carter brought everybody, from the head of Israel, he had Yasser Arafat, he had everybody at the White House. They all signed this big agreement how they were going to create a two-state solution. They had the Stockholm Agreement. They did everything they could on this idea. It failed. It failed because Muslims don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution. They want Israel gone, period.
So you look at them as kind of like a disease in the Middle East, basically. That's how they look at them.
I look at anti-Semitism as a disease, and I think that the Muslims who have been so possessed by this idea we've got to destroy Islam, destroy Jewish, after they destroyed Jewish faith, they would destroy Christianity.
But it goes both ways. The Muslims think, the Jews think the same thing of the Muslims. So it's like it's the same thing, both sides.
Islam has never gone through a reformation. Every major religion in the world, except Islam, have gone through a reformation in which the heads of the religion decided they were going to abandon the idea that anybody who didn't believe like they did was an apostate that deserved to be killed. We fought holy wars in the Middle Ages. We had inquisitions in the Christian churches. And, those were nutcase ideas of burning witches and everything else that they did until we decided that was not the core of the religion. Okay, so then when we come around to our founding fathers, they did freedom of religion because they didn't want this fighting among religions to be supreme and kill all the other people who are apostates. Islam is not yet there. Islam thinks that the only people who deserve to live among the Shiites are the Shiites. And what Saudi Arabia knows is that if Iran were able to get rid of Israel and get rid of the United States, the next group that Iran's going after are the Saudis.
I mean, there's so many different ways to look at this. I also see, well, let me ask you this then. What is the objective? What's the plan for the greater state of Israel? Because we know that after they reduced Gaza to rubble, now they're going to make it like resorts, hotels, whatever, on the backs of these dead children and women. That I can't help but think, wow, this was a huge, massive real estate deal. What's the plan of greater state of Israel? And what about the third temple fulfilling prophecy?
Probably also believe we bombed Europe and killed women and children so we could rebuild it. No, we bombed.
No, I'm not saying me. This is just what people are going to be asking.
Okay, but I'm saying it's comparable to that argument. The point is that we bombed Europe in order to defeat Hitler. And that was our goal, not to rebuild Europe or anything else. The Marshall Plan was an afterthought, and it was Harry Truman that imposed and got the Marshall Plan going, and George Marshall, who was the real commander, and he was the head of the military operating out of Washington during World War II, George Marshall. The point is that in the Middle East, the only solution long-term is peace through prosperity. And what the Abraham Accords are about is realizing that coexisting with Israel is economically smart for all the other Muslim states that can grow and prosper. And if we did this, we would have fewer wars coming out of the Middle East. It's the only solution. And the process is we have to abandon the idea of destroying Islam, which countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others, Dubai, have done.
So let me break to an ad right now. Jerome, I want to get your views on The Storm is Coming. Stephen Miller lays out what is about to hit the coming weeks under President Trump's anti-fraud task force, led by Vice President Vance. I'm hearing raids are going to skyrocket. Let me get your thoughts on this, on what's coming to America next. I believe we're going into the next part of this operation I like to call the Trump operation. But just one moment. Alex, if you could throw the number up on the screen. Chapter, baby. Just some real talk for a second. You know me, I love this country, I love God, and I love my family. And when it comes to my family, I don't play around. I've watched people close to me go through the Medicare process, and I'll be honest, it's confusing, it's overwhelming, and there are a whole lot of brokers out there more interested in their commission than in finding a plan that works for you. That didn't sit well with me, so I went looking for something better, not for clicks, not for sponsorships, but for my family and for you folks. That's why I partnered with Chapter, and I recommend them to everyone I know. They actually compare every Medicare plan out there that's available. They walk you through it in plain English, no pressure, no games, just straight answers. And here's what I respect the most about this company. If you're already on the right plan, they'll tell you that's integrity. On average, they've helped people save about $1,100 a year and so much more. If you're turning 65 or already on Medicare, do yourself and your family a favor. Call Chapter. It's free. It takes about 20 minutes, and it can put real money back into your pocket. There's the number, 212-433-2495. It's just a simple phone call. Find out if you're on the right plan and you could actually save a lot of money. Jerome, are you interested in this?
Sounds good.
Right. Oh. All right, let's get into this. Let's get, all right, so Stephen Miller lays out what is about to hit in the coming weeks under President Trump anti-fraud task force, led by President Vance. Miller says what you're going to see with President Trump's task force that he put Vice President Vance in charge of is increasing scope of raids, not riots, probably that too. Raids, prosecutions, enforcement actions, and convictions, which means it tells me arrests. That's what it says to me, Jerome. The month right now that we're in is going to be the beginning of this large ramp up. In the near weeks, you're going to see much more enforcement. So are we going to start seeing what? More ICE raids, more police, military on the streets? I mean, what are we going to start seeing here, Jerome?
The fraud is more, it's not so much necessarily involving illegals. Although in Michigan, the Somali community is very involved in the daycare center fraud. But the fraud has been largely the Democratic states, which have seen the federal money going into various welfare programs like, the daycare centers for children, Medicare, Medicaid, as a piggy bank that they can steal from. And that's been done in massive, billions of dollars. Also, the SNAP program, the food stamp program has been massively subject to fraud, largely because under Obama and Biden, the federal government just paid this stuff out to whomever was billing them. And they were very lax in terms of their scrutiny as to whether or not those billing the federal government were legitimate operators. And the real criminals are people like Waltz, governor, and these governors in Wisconsin, Michigan, and other states, governor in Illinois. These states have allowed all this to go on. I think you're going to find it in New York too. That there's a culture of stealing money from the federal government that the Democrats have been utilizing for now decades, but it accelerated under Obama and Biden, including Act Blue, which was engaged in mortgage fraud. Biden and Obama opened the border.
Which, Sean Taylor is exposing, right? Or he's part of that.
Exposing that. And so after they opened the border with Honduras, what they did was they were able to profit for the federal government, stood aside, and we had child trafficking, we had fentanyl and cocaine flooding into the United States. The banking system benefited. Money was put aside for the Democrats, and the Democrats got it out through mortgage fraud, where the Act Blue would buy $1 million house, and the head of Act Blue would take out tens of millions of dollars in mortgage loans on that property that were all fraudulent.
So, I got to say, it seems like it's been a little quiet here on the front with raids. I haven't, especially here in El Paso, it's like I was just at the airport and I was like, man, are the illegals traveling again? Because it sure does look like it, And I was like, what's going on here? So I'm guessing this is now with Kristi Noem stepping down. This is going to start picking up again? It's going to get pretty crazy again? Is that how we should look at this?
I think when the Department of Homeland Security gets going again with, ICE, it's going to be reorganized. So it's not going to be quite as, flagrant or quite as offensive. Now, you've got to also realize that a lot of these sanctuary cities and states are not allowing the ICE to come in and pick up illegals who are in prison having committed crime.
It's crazy.
They pushed ICE into more drastic tactics of having to hunt down the illegals and take them out of their homes or take them out of wherever they can find them.
Home Depot.
I think ICE would much prefer to operate in conjunction with state and local police in order to identify where criminal illegals are and to go after them. Now, if the Democratic states, the problem is, and Trump has said this repeatedly, the Democrats have such a radical agenda, including, sex changes operations on children who have not reached the age of puberty and other insane ideas, freeing criminals who have committed horrendous crimes because the criminals are the victims. American people think these ideas are insanity. They are. And so the only way the Democrats can win elections is if they can cheat, and they want the illegals here so the illegals can vote, even though it's illegal for foreigners to vote in U.S. elections. But the Democrats won't let pass the SAVE Act or anything else that compromises their ability to utilize elections to cheat.
So Trump already signed an executive order, no mail-in ballots. I've heard that more executive orders are coming that are going to be in-person paper ballots. When this happens, I mean, Jerome, that's game over for the Democrats, I believe. I think
if the Democrats can't cheat, they can't win.
They can't. So what's going to happen? What's going to be their next move?
Well, there's no reason for this Democratic Party to exist. It's not only a Maoist party. It's a cultural Maoist party. It's a Maoist organization. They were neo-Marxist to start with, going back into the 60s, and then became outright Maoist with street demonstrations and And now they've become just outright anarchists and insurrectionists.
So would they try to delay the midterms or cause chaos?
So I think President Trump will have to put out a national security emergency declaration and to say under Article 2, Commander-in-Chief powers, National Guard will be used to make sure the federal elections are conducted under rules which ensure voter rights are maintained for voter integrity. And there's a Supreme Court case, Boast v. U.S., which just was promulgated. I talk about it all the time. It was done in January. Chief Justice Roberts wrote the decision of the court 6-3 on behalf of a congressman who objected that extending the voting for days after the election was an inherently unfair practice. And Chief Justice Roberts said he had standing to do so, and that practice was unconstitutional. Okay, so therefore the Supreme Court's already lining up to say that some of these, if challenged before the election, not after it's certified, much harder to challenge a certified election. You can't get standing. Justice Roberts gave standing to the congressman who challenged the continuous counting in Illinois after the election was over.
It's ridiculous.
Right, it's ridiculous.
So let's jump to this. Let me just pivot real quick to this great reset that Trump put out on Truth Social, talking about the world's greatest reset, whatever he said. I'm sure Alex can find it and put it up on the screen. But Trump summons bank leaders over terrifying new threat to global financial system. Trump administration has summoned America's most powerful bank chiefs to an urgent closed-door meeting over an AI model as makers warn could bring down a blue-chip company or breach national defense firewalls. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell convened the session at Treasury headquarters in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday to address Mythos, a new model from AI giant Anthropic, and they announced Mythos the same day, revealing that the model surprised coders by hacking into the company's own networks during internal testing. Are we going to see, are we preparing? Is that what the Great Reset is going to be? Some kind of massive hack on all the banking institutions, take down the system, go into 10 days of darkness? What is this reset going to look like according to you, Jerome?
Well, there's going to be some solutions that are going to take time for the American people to accept. For instance, if you took Social Security benefits and if you paid them in cryptocurrency, okay, where people could, especially younger, say if the crypto appreciates, it'd be a lot better than getting it in dollars, which depreciate under inflation.
There it is.
And so therefore, what you would do is you would restructure to take a lot of the obligations of the federal government off the balance sheet. So if you prevent fraud, if you reduce to a certain extent the spending, but take the spending that you're going to do and put it into cryptocurrency, which is a private currency, it's no longer an obligation of the federal government. It doesn't bankrupt the system. So there are solutions which can be reset the finances of the United States, because we can't just keep running up the deficits we're running up right now. That's only a path to certain economic ruin.
So we got to start trimming the fat.
Well, or come up with, as I say, if you can take, if you understand the fundamental economics, the problem is the balance sheet. The problem is we've got these non-discretionary payments, which are transfer payments of one kind or another to individuals, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, even though it's not quite the same. You have supposed to have a trust fund that we pay into to get paid out of. Of course, the trust fund is just filled with federal IOUs because it's been robbed by the Congress any number of times it gets any money. So you got to take all these obligations and move them off of the dollar. You put them on cryptocurrency, then you could keep spending that all you want, but it doesn't bankrupt the good dollar, because it's not an obligation of the Treasury any longer, only the balance sheet items. So the non-discretionary spending in the United States is probably now about 70% of the budget. Those levels are unacceptable. The federal government is technically bankrupt because we cannot meet all the future obligations that are set in legislation like Medicare with an expanding aging population, or Medicaid. Or on Social Security. They're not viable if they're on the balance sheet. Take them off the balance sheet and pay them in cryptocurrency. It doesn't hurt the federal budget. We can be solvent again.
Well, I don't know what you think about NASA. I think it's a massive psyop. I don't know what your views on it are, but talk about trimming the fat. Okay, Trump has proposed cuts to NASA, and the astronauts feel this is an insult after they just went up in Artemis, the crew. Friday splashdown of the Artemis 2 crew, the first to travel to the moon since the Apollo program ended in 1972, is a moment of celebration for all of us on Earth. But it's also an important reminder that despite the success, the current administration, Office of Management and Budget, is proposing budget cuts that will all but dismantle much of NASA. See, I think
there's no reason NASA can't be privatized. There's no reason we have to have the government pay to go to Mars.
Well, I guess Elon could do that.
Well, we can have private companies take on these, and you can have funding by the federal government, which doesn't go through NASA, but it goes through other programs, and it goes into the private economy. Now you created economic growth.
Well, hold on. They supposedly just had such a successful moon mission, but it's surprising, illogical, and very troubling. The proposed cuts would terminate 53 NASA science missions, throwing away more than $13 billion in taxpayer investment and halting the development of nearly every future NASA science mission. I think Trump kind of knows the gig is up. That's where I'm going with this.
Look, you could take all that technology and all of that and give it to private industry for $1 and let them utilize it and put it to use, and then have private funding of space exploration. It'd be much more effective. You can take all the administration of Social Security or the administration of any of these programs, and funding of them can be through cryptocurrency, and they can have it privately administered. The federal government the federal government can't run the post office. It shouldn't run anything. It should maybe run defense. Our original Constitution had the federal government doing very little, because I believe they knew and understood that the government operations were inherently inefficient.
So let me get your view on this as well, Jerome. Now, since I have you here, the New World and breaking the New World. U.S. moves to withdraw 100,000 troops from Europe and halt trillions in defense spending. A historic turning point, the U.S. signals a massive troop withdrawal from Europe and a halt to trillions in defense spending, forcing a global rethink of alliances and strategic balance. So I guess we're going to be pulling out of NATO pretty soon, right?
I think we should pull out NATO. We should pull out of the United Nations. We should pull out of all these global organizations. I think if you just turned the part on the East River in New York that's now the United Nations, made it a parking lot, you'd do better than making it the United Nations.
So, but that's also another reason Trump is going after Iran, right? To pull out of these forever wars, finally end it and neuter it forever, correct? So that we don't ever have to fund into this anymore.
Trump has said about the Middle East that we can't repeat since World War II, we've been doing the same thing with appeasing the radical Muslims, paying the Palestinians, creating a two-state solution. We have incursions into the Gaza that we force Israel to pull back. Gaza just rearms. We can't repeat the things that we've been doing for 75 years that don't work. Don't do those anymore. Do something different. And so Trump's idea is, let's go through peace with prosperity, get the Abraham Accord extended throughout the Middle East, and have people talk sense, where they can get economic prosperity for the Muslim nations so their people can live in prosperity. One of the problems with these Muslim countries is the people are dirt poor. And that you're not going to have a peaceful country where people can't figure out how they're going to eat or raise the family.
And all roads lead to Obama, correct?
Well, I think Obama was an accelerator.
Hold on. I want to leave that for the back channel, because that's still very hot on YouTube.
Well, then just leave that for the back channel.
Okay, let's do something on the back channel to talk about the Obama. There it is. This is what I think is going to come to a head this year. Do you think I'm right about that?
I think the Obama administration is going to come under a lot more scrutiny.
Okay.
And policies that were put into place, I think, are going to get re-examined under current conditions and be differently interpreted. Let's leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm going to get to some what the fuck news. Stay with me just for a moment, Jerome. In what the fuck news, machete-wielding New York City maniac who slashed 3 elderly strap hangers at Grand Central Terminal called himself Lucifer. A criminal slashed 3 elderly people with a machete while calling himself Lucifer in an unprovoked attack and was fatally shot by cops at Grand Central Terminal Saturday morning. Police said, folks, this is just happening like on the regular now. This is becoming more and more ordinary. An 85-year-old man suffered a deep cut across the head, and a 65-year-old man suffered cuts on his head on the 456 subway platform at the iconic station at 9:50 a.m. in the morning after their cup of coffee. Police said a 7-year-old woman was also slashed in the shoulder. Cops said blood-soaked white gauze was wrapped around one victim's head. Photos from the scene show the slasher was also seen carried away in a gurney, like in a straitjacket. So 2 New York PD detectives were working overtime to provide transit security, confronted the 44-year-old identified as Anthony Griffin and told him to drop the machete. From the top of the stairs, they observed an individual on the platform, and they immediately ordered him to drop the knife. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said at a news conference at the scene, the individual was armed with a large knife described as a machete and was behaving erratically, repeatedly stating that he was Lucifer. The reason I read these things, man, is because that's where society is now. That's how crazy this shit's going. You can't even go to the bus stop, the subway, without a crazy person. Mental illness. What is this? I think it has to do with this. A lot of it. I don't know. But it sure does seem to me like society is just falling apart. I don't know. And I want to get one more thing from you, Jerome. Where does this all go?
I'm up against a time limit here, so
okay.
I've got to.
What do you think with AI taking all the jobs? What are we going to go into a universal income?
I don't think so, but that's another topic. Let's leave that for another day because I think AI has benefits. It's not just negative. It has to be managed, but I do think it can be positively utilized. And I think it can be utilized to create jobs, but that's another whole subject.
Got it. Jerome, I'll let you go. Stay with me just one moment. Alex, we're out of here. Everyone's on a time crunch here. Thank you, folks, for joining me. God bless. And the new heavyweight champion of podcasting and the black sheep of broadcasting, folks. Peace out.